from taking out bad guys as a Navy SEAL to running into war zones to save the innocent. Ephraim Mattos, the CEO of Stronghold Rescue and Relief and author of the book City of Death, is here to tell us why he keeps charging toward the chaos and what he's learned about life on the edge. Ephraim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Amy. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. All right, Ephraim, in 30 seconds, what is the one moment as a SEAL that made you say, I've got to do more than just fight?
30 seconds. Wow. Well, long story short, I was on a mission in Afghanistan where the Taliban sent two little girls directly at our position. And it was the backpacks that these girls were wearing were the same kind of backpacks that were used as IEDs and that we had just found about a couple of hours earlier. There was a very high likelihood that these girls were wearing basically bombs on their backs, and the Taliban sent these little girls right at me. And I almost had to take the shot. Luckily, the girls, I was screaming at them. I got them to turn around and go away. But when they turned around and they ran away, that just got me thinking about all the people that are kind of caught in the middle of these conflicts, and started to make me think about all the places where I wouldn't be sent as a SEAL to help people. And so that just kind of shifted my mindset going forward. And that experience I had, that was only my second mission ever. I was a brand new guy. That was only my second time ever in combat. And having that kind of experience really left a mark on me.
Oh, I bet. I mean, that's already an insane story. But right out of the gate, I was going to ask you, what's the wildest thing that you saw as a SEAL on a mission that you'll never unsee?
Yeah, I would say that was during my time as a SEAL, that was probably the wildest thing. There's the normal conflict, related things when you're in combat. But ironically, I've since I left the military, I've ironically been in actually a lot more combat situations and a lot more conflict zones without the backup of the U.S. military or fellow SEALs and such. And that's where I continue to see really crazy, horrific conflict related things as well.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So you left the SEALs when you were 24. I mean, why leave a life that others would kill to stay in?
The big thing the reason I joined the Navy was because I really wanted to go to the cutting edge, the tip of the spear, where people were needed, or where I was needed the most, where people really, really needed me. There was a sense of duty of service to my country as well. But again, after that experience in Afghanistan, I just started to look around the world and realize that if I got out of the military, I could choose where I went and who I helped. Granted, I don't have all the support and the backup of the United States, so my resources are limited, but I thought I can go make a difference in that country or in that village or in that place because they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody with my background or my skill set to go help them. And so actually, the funny thing is, my honest opinion was, if the military had offered me $1 million to stay one more year in the Navy, I would not have taken it. Not a chance.
Wow.
I was so ready to go and get out and go help others. And at the time, when you're in the military, you don't get to choose where you're deployed to, right? So during my second deployment, I was not deployed into an active conflict zone. I was deployed into Southeast Asia doing other kinds of missions. And at the time, this was 2016, 2017, ISIS was still controlling large swaths of Iraq and Syria, and they were massacring civilians, and they were doing all these atrocities. And I thought, that's where I belong. I belong where the chaos is. I belong where the fight is. And I need to go help those people who are caught in the middle of that. And if I stay in the military, maybe they'll send me, but more than likely they won't, or, because there's so many different commitments in different places around the world. So that was why I decided I need to go out on my own and find a way to help whatever that ends up looking like. And I didn't know it was going to end up becoming this thing that it is now, but I knew I had to go and try.
Well, your first mission with Free Burma Rangers in Iraq, what hit you the hardest from jumping from warrior to rescuer?
Hmm. Yeah. So when I left the Navy, I was still I literally left the Navy and bought a one-way ticket to Iraq, and I was working with a group called the Free Burma Rangers. They were a nonprofit group that helps people in conflict zones, and this was before I had officially started Stronghold Rescue and Relief. And so I spent about 90 days with them on the ground in Iraq, and it was a really great opportunity to see what you can do as a nonprofit, as a group of volunteers, to work with local forces, work with local law enforcement in these different conflict zones, assuming you establish a good relationship with them and whatnot. So the astonishing thing was it was more of it was much of what I expected. But the difficult part was going from being a Navy SEAL with helicopters and night vision goggles and invisible lasers, and you can call in airstrikes and encrypted walkie talkies and all that stuff, to you have nothing. The rifle that I was carrying when I was in Iraq, and again, my intention was just to go there to help, but the Iraqi army gave us weapons from dead ISIS fighters, and they said, you guys can carry these. Because we ended up
Wow.
basically being their frontline combat medics, because the Iraqi army at the time, they didn't have enough dedicated full-time medics, and so we sort of filled that gap, treating civilians and soldiers. And so just losing all of that support, losing that a huge umbrella of the that is the United States military, which is awesome. That was definitely a bit of a culture shock, and having to work in those in those situations without that kind of
Oh,
backup.
I'm sure. I mean, that's wild. So I read a story that you actually got shot by ISIS while trying to save a kid in Mosul. Was this during your active duty time with the SEALs, or was this while you were on a civilian mission?
This was as a civilian. I was a civilian. This was
Oh
three
my
days after my
goodness.
25th birthday. Yeah. So I was working with FBR at the time. This was toward the end of my 90 days, working with them. And basically, like I said, we were embedded directly with the Iraqi army as they were pushing through and clearing Mosul, as they were going street by street, and we were being their medics. Well, because of that, we were on the front edge of the advance. And as the Iraqi army advanced into the city of Mosul, uh, a group of several hundred, we don't know the exact number, but hundreds of Iraqi civilians all simultaneously got up and fled, and they tried to get out of ISIS controlled territory to get to the Iraqi army. And because ISIS was basically using them as human shields, so that way we couldn't just, or that rather the American military or the Iraqis couldn't just call in airstrikes on all the ISIS positions. And so what happened was hundreds of civilians tried to run, and around 200 of them were gunned down in the street right in front of ISIS headquarters, which of course was in a hospital, as is per the usual for terrorist groups. So ISIS was headquartered in a hospital with hostages, and then hundreds of people tried to flee that area, and ISIS from the high ground in the hospital killed over 200 of these people in the street. And we're talking men, women, kids, babies, elderly people. There was a man, he was slumped over in his wheelchair because he'd been executed sitting in his wheelchair,
Mm.
dead babies, like everything. And so, as the Iraqi army advanced, we found this mass, this I guess killing field, and it had just happened the day before we got there. So all the bodies were still fresh and hadn't started to rot or anything. Um, and anyway, hiding in one of the piles of bodies, because there was just heaps of bodies everywhere. Hiding in one of the piles of bodies was a little girl, and she had somehow survived the Mosul heat by hiding under her dead mother's hijab. Um, and she was right in front of ISIS headquarters, maybe 100 yards away. She's right there in front of them, and in the biggest pile of bodies. And so we knew we had to do something. We knew we had to go get her, and so we put together a plan with the Iraqi army. And basically, the plan was this: the Iraqi army drove a tank straight at ISIS headquarters. We followed on foot. There were about 5 of us. We followed on foot, grabbed a little girl, and grabbed another man, and we were able to extract 2 of them. We lost a third person who was injured in that pile of bodies. We weren't able to get them out. Um, so we were able to successfully extract 2 people. But during this, ISIS is firing at us the whole time from 2 different directions on the high ground. The U.S. military, so the Iraqi military called the U.S. military and got permission, and so the U.S. military actually started firing airburst smoke, an airburst smoke screen, basically. And ISIS was just blindly firing through that. Well, at one point, one of the bursts of machine gun fire got through on our way back toward friendly lines, because we're in ISIS territory at this point during the mission. And I was shot in the right calf, and luckily it didn't hit the bone. So truly, it was a through and through. Just hit the muscle. So luckily, I was able to stand up and walk out of there, or hobble out of there, on my own two feet. And so that was the end of my journey in Iraq at that point.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I was interested though to know, what is one skill that you learned in SEAL training that actually saved you the most during rescue missions?
I would say probably just the ability to this sounds very, very basic, but it's basically the ability to find cover and stay behind cover and know how to move quickly. So in the SEALs, we call it IMT, individual movement technique. And what that is basically it's just a way of moving across a battlefield where you are lowering your chances of getting hit by rifle fire, basically. And so basically you just move in short bursts. You make sure you know exactly where you're going to move to. You make sure you know exactly who's around you. You make sure that you're listening to the gunfire. You understand the direction it's coming from. And you don't make a move out in the open unless somebody else is providing covering fire or some kind of overwatch. So it's not like the movies where you just charge the machine gun nest and you're the hero and everything's fine. It doesn't work like that. You have to work as a team. The enemy absolutely will kill you. It doesn't matter how much military training you've been through. So basically just being aware of the battlefield, being aware of what's around you, and moving in short bursts. And that, again, that sounds simple, but when someone's trying to kill you and you have to run a short distance instead of running a longer distance, for example, like let's say you want to move 100 yards, instead of moving all 100 yards at a time, you got to go slow. You got to move 10 yards and drop. And then a couple minutes later, you're going to move another 10 yards and drop. And you got to do that 10 times sometimes in order to make that 100 yards. And people lose their nerve because they don't want to be under fire. And so that's when they stand up too long and they move across the field too long and end up getting hit. So that's just a practical thing to keep you alive.
Well, and was everybody that was on the front lines with you as I guess a combat medic that you called it, did everybody have special force training like you did that was serving with you on those front lines?
Most of the guys that I was with, like sort of the frontline group from FBR, the other American volunteers that were there, because I was not there alone. Most of them were either Marines or former Army Special Forces. Yeah, so actually, pretty much all of them were for the actual like frontline guys. So it was very easy to work directly with them.
Sure. Well, okay, so let's move and talk about Stronghold Rescue and Relief. I want to know what it was that spurred you on to want to start this organization, and where did you want to kind of focus your efforts on the relief missions?
Yeah. So when I was on my last deployment in 2016, this is where I started really, really have this frustration where I thought, so I was deployed for about 6 weeks in Thailand, and we were working with the Thai Navy SEALs, just doing training with them and doing cross training. And that's good. That's important work. But my frustration began to really mount because I knew that I was a 45-minute helicopter ride away from villages in Burma, right across the border, where people are being killed and massacred, and there's genocide, and there's all these atrocities happening. And I just felt this frustration because I was like, I'm here to go fight those bad guys. Like, there's people right across that border, right there, that are being killed, and there's a whole platoon of SEALs here. What are we doing? Why are we sitting here doing, just training the Thai SEALs, or training with the Thai SEALs? And again, I understand for foreign policy reasons, you can't just jump across the border and do whatever you want. I understand the reasons, but anyway, so that's when I got the idea. I said, you know what? I need to get out of the military and I need to start something. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know the difference between a for-profit or a nonprofit. I didn't know anything about business or anything. But I thought I need to get out and find a way to hire guys like me to be able to go and help people in places like Burma. And so that was actually why I went to Iraq the first time. Like I reached out to FBR and I was like, hey, I want to start some organization. Can I come see what you guys do and see if, I can learn some stuff. And so after my time in Iraq, After as I was healing up from the gunshot wound, that just tripled and solidified my intention to start something, and now I kind of understood how it worked a little more. And so then I started Stronghold Rescue and Relief, and we're a nonprofit organization that goes into active conflict zones to protect and care for families where other organizations just usually are not able to get to.
What kind of political red tape are you having to navigate in order to go in and do these rescue missions?
So it's completely context dependent of where you're going into. So most of the work that we're doing it's mostly medical. So I want to be very clear. We're not going in with a bunch of weapons from the United States, landing in some
Mm.
foreign country, going in and like rescuing hostages like SEAL Team 6 or Delta Force or something like that. That's not what we're
Okay.
doing. We're going in. It's like, no, we're going in, embedding with the locals, serving them, helping them, giving them medical training, giving them medical supplies, working with them. And then we start to build a relationship with the locals. And at that point, then we are able to accompany them on missions, and then eventually are able to help organize their capabilities to protect their own people, to evacuate their own people, and we advise and accompany them on these actual missions. So it's a longer term process. We don't. So the focus is, I call it charity with dignity. We are not there
Hmm.
to fish for you. We are there to teach you how to fish, and we are there to stand with you in the worst of times. And so, for example, the primary place we work right now is in Burma, and I've been working there for years. And so, when we go in there, there is no real red tape to work there because we work with one of the local tribes, one of the ethnic minority tribes there in Burma.
Hmm.
And so their government, their tribal structure, they are more than happy to have us there. They're, extremely happy to have us there. But the actual central government, the Burma government, they are the military dictatorship. They hate us. They've tried to kill us before in the past when we're in the field. And so that just is what it is. But so we always are
Well,
appropriate with whatever's allowed by the host nation that we're helping.
got it. I mean, but Burma's a mess. How in the world did you pick Burma as your place to focus on saving lives?
Well, partially, I don't know. I just well, one of the reasons was I just was very aware of it because of my time in Thailand. So as I'm sitting there in Thailand, I'm reading about what's happening across the border. So it was just something that I could understand in my head. And then also having worked with FBR, Free Burma Rangers, they originated in Burma. So I talked with them, and the need, while FBR does a lot of really great work in Burma, the need is so huge. And so we were able to fill some of the gaps that they're not able to cover because we need 1,000 times more
Sure.
help there. Yeah.
Well, talk to us a little bit about Stronghold Rescue and Relief and this one mission that really keeps you up at night.
Um, the mission that keeps me up at night is, so I guess I don't understand the question. You're saying like the Burma mission as a whole keeps me up at night?
No, just really, what is your mission? What is, if you would say there is
Oh,
one
what is
thing that keeps you up at night that you want to accomplish with your organization, what would that be?
this is going to sound a bit intense, but it's true. The first thing that flashed into my head when you asked like what keeps me up at night, why do I do what I do, and it's the number of the things that I see in my head when you ask that. It's the number of dead children that I've seen.
Hmm.
Again, I know it sounds really intense and gory, but that's what keeps me going. That's why I do what I do. That was my original inspiration in Afghanistan, and that's what I saw again in Iraq, seeing ISIS just intentionally shooting children in the head. I just got back from a mission in Burma over Christmas break, December time frame, and on Christmas night I was there working at the front line with the security guys, and I got pictures on my phone of two little girls from just a few miles away, where the Burma army fired mortars into their village on Christmas night because they know that a lot of the people there are Christians. So they fired mortars into their village on Christmas night, and they killed these two little girls. And within an hour or so, I basically had their photos on my phone, and that's how I spent my Christmas night, was looking at these photos. And that's why I'm there. That's why Stronghold is there. We are there to prevent that from happening. We are there to prevent those kids from dying as much as possible. And we can't save everyone. I wish our capabilities were 1,000 times more. I wish I had the full capability of a SEAL team, but our mission is there to, we are there to build up the capacity of the locals so they can free their own people. And we work with them on missions like that to liberate areas. So that way you would, because I don't want to see any more of those photos, and I don't want that to happen. But it
Yeah.
continually happens. So that's really what keeps me going. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you basically answered my next question. I don't think people really understand. They don't get the atrocities, the evil that's actually happening in war zones. I mean, to me, that sounds like that's probably the worst thing you've seen. I don't know if you have anything to add to that to help people understand, but if that's the worst thing, I can definitely move on to the next question because that just sounds that's horrific and just awful. I
Yeah.
had one question
Yeah.
for you going back to your book, City of Death. I want to talk about this just a little bit because
Yeah.
you actually co-authored this with one of the authors of American Sniper,
Mm-hmm.
Scott McEwen, and
Mm-hmm.
I loved that book. I loved American Sniper. I thought it was great. But give me some insight, if you don't mind. What is one story in that book that you almost didn't write because it hurt too much?
Wow, one story from that book that I almost didn't write. Um, I'll be honest with you. There was no story that I put in there that I to where I almost didn't write it. But I will say, because the whole book, again, the name is so intense, right? City of Death. It's me. When I sat down to write that book, basically it was a form of catharsis for myself to sit down. I
Sure.
thought, I have to get this out. I have to write down everything that I just saw, or I'm going to have problems later in life. This was awful. And so, um, some of these stories I've told here a little bit today, sort of at a higher level. The book City of Death really goes into them in detail, and you're walking through the streets with us. You're seeing what I'm seeing. You're smelling what I'm smelling. You're you're hearing the gunfire, and you're smelling the smoke, and you're seeing the bodies, and you're in the fight. And so, for me, when I wrote the book, there were, multiple times where I just had to sit there and I would just start weeping, because I was sitting there, I was like, as I'm graphically writing out what I saw and
Yeah.
what happened. Um, and so uh, there's so many things that happen that are tough, but I knew it had to get written down. So there wasn't anything that I sort of second guessed putting in.
Yeah. Well, you're a new dad, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm always curious, though. Obviously, you're not going to have to explain it to your daughter right this second, but have you thought through how you're going to explain to your children one day why daddy has to run off and go into active war zones?
Mm-hmm. I have thought about that a little bit. My hope is that I'm telling them why Daddy used to go into war zones, because I hope at some point to be able to, retire from constantly going into these areas. But yeah, I have thought about it, and I think when they get a little older, I think what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to wait for them to start asking questions. There's enough. They'll go find this book
Mhm.
that Daddy wrote. They'll go find something on the internet, or one of their friends will say something about, like, oh, your dad is in this video or something. And then they're going to come to me and they're going to ask me questions. And when that happens, I'll I'll tell them the truth and walk them through it. Yeah.
Wow. So I've got a question for you. Because you have been through so much, you have seen so many horrific things, but I feel like you have gotten to a place where you've been able to find happiness. So, what does happiness look like for you? What does it look like when you're dodging bullets to save a stranger?
When I'm done with that, I just
Hmm.
want to be with my wife. Yeah,
Hmm.
I just want to be home. So the funny thing, um, about me, most people assume, like, oh, you were a Navy SEAL, you still go to these war zones, you must be an adrenaline junkie, and the exact opposite is true. You can ask anybody who knows me, anybody who works with me, they'll know, like, I'm a homebody. I want to be home. I want to be with my family. I want to read books and just like relax at home. That to me is happiness. The only thing that pulls me out of that is this greater need to go and help people who I have a unique ability to go and help. But yeah, basically, my happy place is just being with my family. And also too, kind of sort of answering that question a different way is, one of the things that I think a lot of military guys struggle with is hatred for the enemy, hatred for themselves because of a mistake they made in combat. Um, and so one of the things that I really try to focus on is not hating the enemy and not hating the bad guys for the things that they've done. Hate the action, but don't hate the people and don't let it consume you. And forgive. Not. It's not about not holding them accountable. It's not like that at all, right? It's like ISIS. Like, no, you need to hunt them down and kill them wherever you can find them, for sure, right? Because they're evil terrorists. But in your heart, forgiving them and just going, okay, you are so miserable and you are so full of darkness. I'm not gonna take that home with me. I'm not gonna sit around and stew about it when I'm at home with my family, thinking about you and how evil you are. And then also my own mistakes I've made in combat, my own mistakes, or making decisions where you second guess. You said, I went left instead of right, and now that guy's dead and I'm alive. And you have those things as well. And it's very easy for veterans to hate themselves because they go, oh, because I should have done this, I should have done that. And so my biggest thing as far as being able to get to my happy place and being able to enjoy my happy place is just giving up hatred for others and all of that, and not putting that on myself and not bringing it home with me.
Well, Ephraim, I think that's a wonderful way to wrap this up. I really appreciate your time. Before you go, I always like to do a quick rapid fire with my guests. Okay. Just the first thing that pops to your head, real quick answers. But if you can answer this one really quickly, what was it that drove you to want to be a Navy SEAL in the first place?
I wanted to serve my country, and I wanted to do it at the highest level possible. And for me, when I looked at all the different special operations groups, the SEALs to me looked to be the most challenging. It was the one group when I looked at it, I originally said, no, I can't do that. That's too hard. But then I thought, no, that's a bad mindset. What am I talking about? No, that's the one I need to go for. And so that's why I chose the SEALs as opposed to another armed group or another special operations group.
Love it. And let's end this on a happy note. What's your favorite Burma story?
Oh, my favorite Burma story. Wow. Well, I think I
know the answer.
Yeah, you actually, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because I almost didn't answer the way that you thought I was going to answer. Well,
glad I know you then.
yes, that's great. Yeah, so actually, I met my wife in Burma. So my wife, she's from the same ethnic minority group called the Karen that we serve in Burma. So I've been working there for years, and she left Burma when she was around. She was born on the Thai side of the border, and she left a Thai refugee camp to go to live in Canada when she was 10. And so she just so happened to come back to Burma, 15 years later, and was there trying to see how she could help her own people. And so I was at one of the clinics where we take our patients when people are injured, and I met her there. And she was just there for a couple of days to check out the clinic and see if there was some way that she could help. And we met, fell in love, and and now we just had a baby a few weeks ago. So that's my favorite. That's definitely my favorite Burma story, without a doubt. Yeah.
Well, I love it. And I absolutely love your story. I am so excited to share it with our audience because I think it'll be a true inspiration to so many people. But before we go, can you please let everybody know where they can find out about Stronghold Rescue and Relief? If they want to get involved, donate, just send them to all the places.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to go is just strongholdrescue.org. You can find all of our updates on the work that we're currently doing. And then if you want to be a supporter, we run completely off of the donations of thousands of people all over the country who each give about $20 a month. That's our primary model. It's sort of like a Netflix model. And if you want to go over there, and if you want to help, go over there and sign up. Yeah, we'd really appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, Ephraim, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time. Ephraim's not just a warrior. He's a lifeline in the chaos. The full episode's got the unfiltered guts of the story on Play TV.